Hello and welcome to the big picture. The 2G order of the Supreme Court yesterday has raised a lot of questions and also certain issues which needs to be discussed further. The 122 licenses of operators which have been cancelled is quite a historic judgment. So to discuss this, we are raising the issue today, what will be the fallout of the 2G judgment on both governance and as well as politics. To discuss this with me today, I have Mr. Prashant Bhushan himself, who was responsible for this order in the Supreme Court. His Center for Public Interest Litigations was the one which filed the petition in the Supreme Court seeking the cancellation of licenses. So he is with us here today to explain and also see how this order will affect various sectors. Along with him is Mr. Nilotpal Basu, Central Committee member of the CPIM, a former Rajya Sabha member who all during his tenure as Rajya Sabha member has tracked the telecom policy of various governments very, very closely. And also along with us is Mr. Arun Shourie, the former Union Telecom Minister, who will be on the phone line with us. So it is a power-packed panel. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Shourie, I'll come to you first. This judgment which the Supreme Court has given yesterday, do you think this will bring about more policy clarity or will it lead to more confusion and delay in governance?
The first point is that I think the entire country owes a great debt of gratitude to Prashant Bhushan, to Subramaniam Swamy, and of course to the two judges who have pursued this case all this while and brought us so much closer to the truth. Second is that I certainly greatly welcome the judgment. Many judgments are ambiguous, but this is a very clear judgment. And I praised it a lot in my reactions yesterday. But and Prashant will be able to guide us more on these matters. But on, if you permit, I think there are 3-4 points now that we have all had chance to read the judgment in detail, which I think may have consequences not so much for politics as you were saying, or for telecom policy, but even for jurisprudence in this regard. One is that you see there is a trial that is going on.
Yes.
And you and I and Prashant, I know, certainly all of us feel very strongly that Raja and Behura and others did grave wrong to the country. But when the Supreme Court says this, as it has done in the case of Raja and in the case of telecom officials, I feel a reasonable ground arises for them to be able to claim that their trial has been prejudiced. Because now a subordinate court will have to hear them, will be trying this matter, or is trying this matter. Second problem I personally feel is, and I probably Mr. Subramaniam Swamy would feel this, and Prashant would, that in regard to the finance minister and the prime minister, most certainly the complete record has not been brought into the judgment. It is possible that they examined the whole record. But for instance, for them to say that Raja did not inform the finance minister or the finance ministry officials is just not borne out by the record. The fact of the matter is that can it be anybody's case that even the finance ministry officials did not inform the finance minister? You see, whether you are the finance minister or Mr. Chidambaram or anybody, doesn't matter. But that statement coming contrary to the record becomes, difficult to stomach.
Mr. Shourie, do you agree? Do you agree that going by the judgment as we read as the judgment as it is, that the Congress claimed that both the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister have been given a virtual clean chit by the Supreme Court is justified?
No, of course that is not justified. I mean, and because that is not the matter before the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And that has been pointed out by various people yesterday also. I think Prashant also spoke on this occasion.
Right.
But, the Congress will, of course, go on interpreting these things, and they have to eat their words every few days. Where is the zero loss today?
Yeah.
Whereas, actually, it is Kapil Sibal who said in a press conference soon after the Raja's arrest and so on,
Right.
and that Raja kept the Prime Minister informed at all stages.
Yes.
It is Kapil Sibal. Now, where is that? The Supreme
Absolutely.
Court is saying he did not keep them informed.
Absolutely. So let me go.
Yesterday, Sibal is saying it was just a fraud of Raja, and the PM and FM were not in the know of it. So these Congress fellows, I think, and also, if I may say with my great affection for Prashant, many of his colleagues in the legal profession, like Kapil Sibal, they are just, they just go on saying all sorts of things.
Okay. So
may I just mention two small points, and then one is, just as they said things about Raja and others, in the case of the TRI officials, I feel that they should have heard the officials, because it doesn't concern our period, but in the characterization of the recommendations of TRI in 2007, I feel that they are quite wrong. The judgment is misplaced, because actually TRI kept writing letters, that is to my personal knowledge, they kept writing letters to the minister, Raja,
right.
And to the secretary, that you are bound to consult us before you issue new licenses, before you do this, that, or the other, or the procedure you follow. And that was put down with a heavy foot by the ministry.
Right, sir.
So you can't.
Okay. Okay, let me.
Come to the first come, first served bit later.
When we'll come to that later, sir. Let me go to Prashant. Prashant, Mr. Shourie has raised a couple of points, finding some loopholes in the judgment. One of the major things which he's talking about is giving a virtual clean sheet to the Prime Minister and then Finance Minister, Mr. Chidambaram. Do you see that as a problem?
No, I don't think any clean sheet has been given to anyone. In fact, there was a specific application of Mr. Subramaniam Swamy regarding Mr. Chidambaram, on which the Supreme Court, after recounting all the facts and circumstances that Dr. Swamy had pointed out to show that Mr. Chidambaram knew about this all the time, and he in fact gave his consent to the giving away of spectrum at 2001 prices.
Right.
Thereafter, the Supreme Court says that because this matter is already with the trial court before the special judge, therefore they would rather let the special judge deal with it.
Prashant, let me read from the order just two sentences. It says, however, as the Minister of Communication and IT was very much conscious of the fact that the Secretary of Finance had objected to the allocation of 2G spectrum at the rates fixed in 2001, he did not consult the Finance Minister or the officers of the Finance Ministry. That's what he says.
Right, he did not consult, but that does not, at that stage. However, immediately after that is immediately after the issue of the letters of intent, but before the grant of licenses, that is on 15 January 2008, the Finance Minister was consulted as to whether spectrum should be given away at 2001 prices.
So these issues were not brought before the court. How has the court ignored those aspects then when they are writing the judgment?
Because that was not the issue before the court. The court was not going into the culpability of the Finance Minister or the Prime Minister. The only application in which they were called upon to go into Mr. Chidambaram was the one filed by Dr. Swamy.
Right.
In which they said that since he has already gone to the special judge and the special judge has heard his arguments and is going to pronounce on the matter, therefore the Supreme Court is not saying anything on the matter and they should allow.
But still, Supreme Court says we will not say, but still they seem to have made some comments on the merits of the case.
No, this is just a statement of fact that just before the issue of letters of intent which were done on 10th January, at that stage, this Raja did not seek the consent of the Finance Minister on the issue of spectrum pricing.
Right.
But immediately thereafter, before the grant of actual licenses, this issue of spectrum pricing was sent to the finance minister.
Okay. Unfortunately, with this record before them, they did not, they said something different.
Okay.
That is the problem.
Okay, okay. Nilotpal, let us look at the other aspect of it. Already there are questions being raised about the Supreme Court order. Certain sections of media as well as the corporate houses and others are raising this question about Supreme Court saying that auction is the best method. It can affect investments, it can affect various aspects of this business.
No, I think the whole judgment revolves around a very interesting notion of public trust doctrine.
Right.
And the court has gone at length into defining natural resources and pointed out that in the country today, there is no law on natural resources. And then drawing from the international experience, they have established the whole concept of public interest doctrine. And they say that these natural resources, the manner in which it can be handled by the government has to be sensitive and people-centered policy, people's interest-centered policy has to be the absolute pivot of this approach. Therefore, these corporates, whatever they are saying, is really bunkum.
Okay. We need to go into a short break now. We'll come back and we'll discuss other issues which have cropped up following this judgment. Please keep watching. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back. We are discussing the fallout of the 2G judgment of the Supreme Court.
The order actually does not use the term, but the description can lead to only one conclusion, that it was absolute cronyism. Now, cronies, if they demand that the judgment is flawed because the court has objected to cronyism, then I think there can be no reason to accept that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me go back to Mr. Shourie.
Girish, may I just point out
yes,
one
sir.
small thing?
I'm coming to you.
You know, this business of suddenly, look, I am all for auctions, as you know. I've written about this. I have papers on this matter. But the sweeping nature of the Supreme Court's construction on this matter, I'll give you an instance.
Yes.
Water is a national resource or not?
Drinking
water is a national resource.
Yes.
Do you want it to be auctioned?
Sir, this is exactly the point.
You cannot have auctioning for all natural resources. Secondly, even in telecom, I tell you, I was for auctioning, and therefore, Prashant will recall, Nilotpal certainly will recall that in February, March 2003, we announced an auction.
Yes.
And not one operator came, and we had to call off the auction. I had to go to the Prime Minister, and the previous evening we had to call it off.
Right.
So this is and these gaps can, tomorrow the allegation will be, actually there is an allegation today that some of these operators got together, bid low in this whole infrastructure sharing, and they are now operating all India licenses after having got only local statewide licenses.
Yes.
So this is too simple-minded a thing for the court to have pronounced in a big way.
Okay.
About
so
one thing or the other.
So on that question, Mr. Shourie, that I think your former colleague actually used this circuitous route of allowing the CDMA operators to have a local operation and then converted it into a full-fledged national service. I think, you should not be throwing stones living in glass houses.
My colleague, but I'll tell you something that's a very important point. that has just been made about the CDM operators.
Yes.
And as you remember, Nilotpal, I then instituted an inquiry and we found that one of the operators was in effect operating not a local limited liability license but an all India license, and that is why they were fined some 1,600 crores or something.
Right.
I think that was peanuts, Mr. Shourie.
Okay. Anyway.
You will remember the kind of collusion that was taking place between the government and the TRAI at that point in time.
Right.
I think that's a point to be discussed, but I am entirely with you on this matter.
Because this judgment also talks about the role of the TRAI.
Let him.
There is no substitute for character, and therefore the simple notion that, auction all natural resources. I am giving you the example of water scarcity in India, and CPIM certainly knows what happened in Kerala when this water was being
absolutely.
By
Sir, Mr. Shourie, I want you to give your remarks on another point. In the judgment, Mr. Harish Salve's contention has been mentioned in the judgment. Mr. Harish Salve said, if you are finding fault with the first come, first serve policy from 2007, then you should annul all the licenses which have been given from 2001. But the court has said that they are not saying anything because that has not been questioned. The operators who have got licenses in 2001 were not party to this petition. So in future, if somebody raises this in the court, you think all the licenses given during your period and during your predecessor's period also will come under question?
Sir, the Prashant and other lawyers are better equipped to talk on these matters. But as far as I am concerned, you will have to look at the fairness with which the policy was implemented. If it's an open, fair policy in terms of the Supreme Court's own criteria, right. I personally would feel that you cannot go back and then cancel licenses, because even there's a point somebody has made yesterday that the court has found that the governmental officers and ministers did wrong.
Right.
But that the operator, some honest operator, is being made to suffer. As soon as there is at least one of the 122 fellows is an honest man.
Yes.
Now here, in the same way, there is also this doctrine of estoppel. Government gives permission.
Right.
Unless it is given by fraud.
Okay.
And if it is given in a straightforward, transparent manner,
absolutely.
And the other fellow goes and invests 20,000
right.
crores, and then you suddenly say, I cancel your license, I don't think that will stand in law.
Okay. Let me go to Prashant on this point. Prashant, what Mr. Shourie says is, you can't go back and cancel. You think, in the light of what the Supreme Court has said, that those parties have not been made, those operators have not been made parties, so we are not going to look into it. Do you think if you or somebody else can go into it?
One can certainly go into that, but you see at that
why
time,
didn't you go into? Why did a petition refer to what had happened before?
Because what had happened before was in a different situation where a policy of first come, first served had been announced, and yet there were not enough takers, because
right.
at that time the value of these licenses and spectrum was not considered as substantially higher than the price of the fourth operator,
right.
which was fixed in 2001.
Right, absolutely.
But by 2006, the valuations of these licenses and spectrum had gone up substantially, and by 2006, the demand had suddenly increased. And therefore, because the spectrum was not available to cope with the demand, therefore, all these applications were put on hold, and finally, on all these applications, by the time of 2007, 575 applications had come. Then Mr. Raja first adopted a strategy of advancing the cutoff date,
right.
or retarding the cutoff date so as to exclude 375 of the 5
and 122 of the favored,
and then gave it to those 122 by fiddling and manipulating the first come
right.
first serve method also.
Okay, that is very
In these
clear.
circumstances, the Supreme Court says that look, when it has become clear that this has become a scarce natural resource as well as a valuable natural resource, then in these circumstances to give it away on the basis of first come first served on some notional price fixed many years ago is completely contrary to Article 14.
That is okay.
It is capricious, arbitrary, discriminatory.
Absolutely.
And must be quashed.
So you agree with Mr. Shourie? You agree with Mr. Shourie that the licenses given before, did not suffer from these kind of infirmities?
No, may not have. It needs to be examined as to whether at that time the demand was greater than the available supply of spectrum. If it was, then they would also suffer from that flaw. But if it was not, then perhaps they stand on a different footing. However, by 2007, it had become crystal clear what Mr. Raja did was totally unfair, discriminatory, mala fide and dishonest.
Mr. Shourie, please, I'll need to go to Mr. Nilotpal. Nilotpal, the larger issue, now that this whole issue is now out in the open, the government's position now, where does the government stand? Does it has been told that they have to change the policy, go in for auction. Mr. Shourie thinks that this aspect of the order of giving this all natural resources should be allocated through auction is a faulty and can create problems in future.
I agree. But his analogy between water and spectrum is also absolutely preposterous. Because water is something which the common people require. And spectrum is being
now mobile phones and
I think
has become as much aware.
Girish, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is
just explain the difference between the two. You see, the Supreme Court has said that first, that natural resources must be given away in public interest. This is the first consideration. Right. Now, if you need to subsidize the giving away of natural resources to the common people in public interest, that can be done.
Right.
However, when it's a scarce natural resource which is very valuable and is going to be given to corporations for commercial considerations, then giving it away at a subsidized price or by this method of first come first served,
I think Mr. Arun Shourie wants to react.
I was in the middle of my argument.
Just you see, briefly. Okay, please.
Let him talk. No problem.
You finish
no
and
problem.
then I'll go to...
Let him proceed.
Mr. Shourie.
I mean, what is this?
Mr. Shourie, you please react and then I'll go to Mr. Nilotpal.
I think Prashant has put it very well.
Right.
And there is no dispute between what Nilotpal and I were saying. Both of us agree that when there is a scarce natural resource, and it is a thing like spectrum, which is going to be bid by, in the initial stage, by the large companies and so on. There must be these transparent methods and auction and all. I was only on the point that please do not take that construction beyond what Prashant is just now pointing out. Don't take it to be a sweeping thing as if it is a panacea in all circumstances about all natural resources, all scarce resources, etc. Only that. That is why I don't see Nilotpal's anger, habitual anger at me, to be well placed.
Okay. See, he has made it clear that he also doesn't mean that in the case of
it's absolutely clear. Nobody can argue because you see. What happened in this case, that government gave the subsidy, as it is claiming, to these commercial operators, but they offloaded it in the market, and that also manipulating the merger and acquisition policy.
Right.
And then they claimed that there was no hanky-panky. But the point here is that what we need to do on the larger question of governance is properly define natural resource now as the void that has been pointed out by the court order, and also evolve some kind of a sector-specific framework for dealing with this, and their public interest should rule supreme over all other considerations.
For example, in mines,
we are running short of time.
I'll just give one example. Mining of scarce natural resources, that is ores, iron ore, copper, etc., or oil and gas. These are very, very prime examples
Yes.
of resources which are worth thousands of crores,
absolutely.
which are being given away at a fraction of their market price.
In fact, that will be
by
the next.
this
That will be the next
first
scandal in
come,
this.
first served method under this totally bogus mining policy that we have at present.
Absolutely. That's a completely different discussion. We'll do that. Mr. Shourie, coming back to you for the last time. Now, Mr. Kapil Sibal has announced a new policy according to which delinking of licenses from spectrum has been proposed. You think that is the solution to this problem?
Well, sir, that is one of the solutions because, as Prashant has been emphasizing, Nilotpal just now saying, spectrum is now a very valuable resource.
Right.
And our approach at that time also was that you have a very low entry fee so that you maximize competition, but you auction spectrum.
Right.
So that then the scarce resource is there, but many more competitors come in and remove the cap on the numbers. But I would personally feel, sir, that the government should find some other lawyer than Mr. Kapil Sibal. This whole idea of going on blaming others is not going to work. And as far as all of us are concerned, apart from expressing our great gratitude to Prashant and the judges and to Subramaniam Swamy, we should all focus on the trial getting done expeditiously. And I can only make a plea to the lawyers, please assist the court in arriving at justice swiftly. Don't work so much for your clients in the trial court.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Prashant and Nilotpal, last words. Just last words. He says that, Mr. Shourie says, but tomorrow there is a judgment as far as Mr. Chidambaram is concerned in the lower court. You think that will change, that is something which will change anything in this judgment?
No, that will not change anything in this judgment. I mean, if Mr. Chidambaram is summoned by the trial court, it may have serious political consequences. Yes. But otherwise, certainly it can't change anything in this judgment.
Nilotpal, last word. We completely run short of time. You think that after this order of the Supreme Court, the balance between the executive, judiciary and the legislature has been retained, or has it been disturbed?
It has been retained, very, very judiciously retained, and I think this judgment is a damning indictment against the policies of neoliberalism in this country.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks to all my guests. This discussion on this order will continue for several more days. There are several more issues to be discussed. So we have completely run short of time. Thanks to all my guests. Thank you, Mr. Arun Shourie. Thanks, Mr. Prashant Bhushan and Nilotpal Basu. We'll come back with another issue on the big picture. Please keep watching.